The image of shepherd was one that Jesus used a lot in preaching. In Luke chapter 15, he uses a shepherd parable addressing Pharisees and religious leaders who are criticizing him. They're criticizing him because he eats and welcomes sinners. So he tells that story that we're all familiar with. What shepherd who had 100 sheep and lost one would not leave the 99 and search and bring the lost shepherd and rejoice to a fountain. The point being that any shepherd would not willingly just write off one of his sheep, but would do all that was possible to bring it back. He's making that point through his leaders. That's what I'm about. I'm bringing people back, bringing them into God's love. In Matthew chapter 18, he seems to use the image of the shepherd specifically with his own disciples, not with people who criticize him. But he says, look, do not hate one of the least of these. As if maybe even among his disciples, people were saying there's some more worthy than others. He says, no, all of these are my sheep. All of our brothers and sisters. Today, still another image, using the image of shepherd in a different way, and this time Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. And I suggest that you read, this is from chapter 10 of John, that if you have time, that you read the whole chapter, because there's a lot of different images. Sheepfold, I am the sheep gate, I am the sheepfold. He kind of turns it over and over again. But this particular part, Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd. Why? Because I lay down my life for my sheep. And he makes the point that he does it willingly. No one takes it from him. He says, I lay it down for my sheep. And I know mine, and mine know me. And he says that he goes further. He says, that's why the Father loves me. In other words, that's why God is so pleased with my ministry. Because I'm willing to lay my whole life down, willingly, for my sheep. The implication, of course, is there are times in our lives when things go terribly wrong. We may lose a job, we may lose our sight, I don't know, we might have a stroke. So many things could happen to us, and have undoubtedly, to some of us, already happened. And the natural, when a disaster happens in our life, we say, where's God? You know, it's natural, it's human. It's the first thing I think. First thing you think, maybe you're more religious than me. But the point that Jesus is making today is that while that is entirely human, when you're in desperation, when you've just been shown the door, or someone has treated you cruelly, or whatever it might be, to be in turmoil, Jesus points out that he gave his life willingly for us, that there is no part of our joy of life or our tragedy of life that he has not fully identified with and is not fully engaged in, willingly. And that's why the Father loves him. And while it's a natural human feeling to feel like we may have been abandoned, it's not at all true. That's why I encourage people to read the scriptures, because they say, why is God doing this to you? If you read the Gospels, you find out that what did Jesus do? He gave his life. He fed them. He healed them. He forgave them. He brought them out of isolation. Gave them meaning for their life. Gave them direction. He did everything possible a human being could do to show his engagement in every aspect of our life. So while it's entirely human to feel, completely bereft, especially when something strikes us first, it's not at all true. It is not at all God's commitment. When Jesus says that the hallmark of his shepherd is he's willing to lay his life down. That's true. Willing to lay his life for you, in my life and in yours. The importance then of growing close to Christ is so that we can really understand the profound commitment God has toward us. Because naturally those times are going to strike. There will be a day when the doctor says, it's curtains, right? I mean, it'll come someday, you know. But the point, the advantage is that if with Christ's complete commitment, there is nothing that can separate us from God, or for what's really important. Not life, not death, not success, not failure, nothing that can break our peace in God, from God's side. The only thing that can break that peace is if we don't know God enough, and we haven't experienced His fidelity deep enough that when the storm comes, that we don't know to turn to Him. So that's one of the important aspects, for example, say of reading Scripture and kind of like saying, He's speaking to me. You know, He's not just feeding the 5,000; He's feeding me. He's not just forgiving them; He's forgiving me, and so on. The other thing is for prayer. Prayer is for ourselves because it gives us that understanding of the profound commitment God has toward us. And there's no point, for example, coming to church if you don't at the same time experience the bennies that go with it. And the bennies is that complete commitment. I will lay down my life for my sheep. I do lay down my life for my sheep. And that's one of them. You and I are that. You know, and you see, then you're really free, huh? Because there is nothing that life or death can throw at you that will separate you from the love that comes to you in Jesus Christ. So that's the beauty, you know. But get to know Him well enough so you believe it. Don't take it from me. You know, let Him tell you just how faithful He is to you. You know, and then it won't matter. If you go in tomorrow morning and they say, we're downsizing it, well, you're going to be really disappointed, right? But at the same time, it's not going to shake who you are in God, from God's side. So, I have the power to lay it down and the power to take it up. And He chooses, Jesus chooses, to lay His life down. God, and in Jesus, God lays down His life for us. Nothing's going to say.